right, guys, let's kick off the review of Noah's May 19th show. Jumping right into it, we'll go into the opening match, which is a tag team matchup of Extreme Tiger teaming with Yohei, which I think is a very interesting team, taking on the team of Hal and Alejandro. Just a small criticism again, why we're not seeing Kai Fujimura and Alejandro teaming more and more, I don't understand. I thought that's a team, once we started to see happening, we would see going forward, but hasn't happened for a few weeks now. Hal looking good as usual, at least as of late, beating almost everybody he faces. But yeah, uphill battle here facing Extreme Tiger and Yohei. The best he could do was to avoid being the one who got beaten here. Alejandro is pinned by Extreme Tiger as he soars into his upcoming match on the 21st very shortly. I'm recording this on the 19th, the day of this show, but a few hours later. So Saturday morning here on the East Coast, we will see, as part of the 21st show, Extreme Tiger challenging Hayata for the GHC Junior Heavyweight Championship, and he looked really good here. This was a little bit too much of a lucha style match for me. Wasn't over the top, okay? Wasn't anything crazy that I hated, but it was very much a lucha style matchup, especially Alejandro and Extreme Tiger in there together quite a bit, showing off those styles of moves, which take skill and talent, but just not this guy's thing, you know, not Adam Lavelle, the wrestling snob, if you will. I haven't called myself in that some time. Not really my style of thing. But match was solid. Match, a very good opening match. A very good match to get the crowd into it a little bit, get them moving a little bit. And I really like how Yohei and Extreme Tiger really come across looking like a solid team. Now, that doesn't mean Hal and Alejandro looked weak or anything. Because, I mean, they're Noah Junior regulars. They work together. They practically live together. They train so much. Making them very solid. But there's something that has really clicked, and sometimes you can just see it. You can just sense it when two guys form a tag team and almost instantaneously have something special, and I really think that's Extreme Tiger and Yohei. Now, the rumors persist. I don't know if they're more than rumors or not. I haven't been able to find out officially yet, but the rumors persist that Yohei is leaving Pro Wrestling Noah. I have no idea if that's true. I'll keep you abreast of that as I find out information. But what a shame. If so, he's a talented guy. He and Extreme Tiger pick up the win here, celebrate together like a team. They have poses that they're going together. You know, you see some long-standing teams that don't even do that. And so you can just tell. They're enjoying their tag team. The fans enjoy their tag team, and I think it's a good tag team in the junior division especially. But they get the win here in a decent opening match that didn't light the world on fire for me, but it wasn't so bad that I would say skip it or anything like that. It's a good opening matchup for this May 19th show, with again Extreme Tiger and Yohei getting the victory. The second match from Pro Wrestling Noah's show on May 19th was two, what I like to call, in remembrance of the one and only Dusty Rhodes, two Bull of the Woods, if you will. We're talking about Michael Elgin taking on one half of the GHC Heavyweight Tag Team Champions, Renee Dupree. This match is exactly what I thought it would be. Two huge, powerful men trying to outpower one another. It was 100% back and forth. Body slams, clotheslines, whatever they could do. Shoving, pushing, just back and forth, trying to gain an advantage. Now, both of these guys are so big and so strong that it was tough for either one to gain that kind of advantage. I felt like one of them needed to use a different tactic. One of them should have tried to use their speed, while neither one are cruiserweights or anything like that. Maybe tweaking their approach would have worked just a little bit, because this was just, 100% back and forth power moves, and both of them are so strong and so hard to put down that it's not like a one big clothesline or one big suplex is going to end the match. I mean, against most other people when they face them, but not against each other. And as this went back and forth the way that it did for the entire matchup, at one point, Elgin did clothesline Renee Dupree over the top, but he went with him. They both landed at the far side of the ring and began to just brawl out there again. They've got something to prove. They're going to prove which bull in the woods is bigger, daddy, if you will. And that didn't happen. I mean, it just didn't. They fought outside the ring till the 20 count had expired, and that was it. That was your match, a double count out. Now, these two just were stubborn, very, very stubborn, determined to play their game and win at their game, which makes sense knowing these men at least somewhat like I do. But again, whenever it's time for this tag team title match, and that's coming up in just a few days, whenever this tag team title match takes place, I feel somebody needs to tweak their approach a little bit. Not because there's anything wrong with their approach. Both of them are ridiculously skilled at what they do. Of that, there is no doubt. But I think to win a championship, you've got to go in there and try to surprise the other one. Try to do something to take them, that shocks them, that gets them to take a step back and be like, what's going on here? I wasn't prepared for this. But that's just my humble opinion as a pro wrestling journalist. We'll see what happens. But this was a double count out. It was entertaining for what it was, watching two big muscle men try to toss each other around, both being mildly successful at it, both being wildly successful at defending against the other one, leading to a brawl outside the ring that ended in the 20 count. Double count out, second match of the night. Not bad, but again, not super exciting, but super exciting in preparation for their upcoming tag team title matchup for sure. So they got the job done in that regard. The next matchup from the May 19th show from Pro Wrestling Noah was a huge 10-man tag team. Again, I'm not a huge fan of this many guys in a match. It's actually hard to see parts of the ring because with guys standing alongside the rope, sometimes you can't see the parallel corners because there's guys blocking the view. But, I mean, of course, this is a great matchup. We got Kenya Okada, Yoshiki Inamura, Junta Miyawaki, Daisuke Harada, and Atsushi Katogi taking on Kongo, that being Haruki, Tadasuke, Hajime Ohara, and Keno and Nakajima. Now, anytime you got Keno and Nakajima right in there in the tag team with Kongo, you don't get that a lot. Because they're usually in singles matches or maybe a featured tag team match. But here, to have two of the big-time leaders of Kongo and Nakajima and Keno, you've got a hell of a team, and it made a hell of a difference here. They're teaming with their junior heavyweights, and I mean, this is a hell of a team they're taking on. Okada is getting better and better, and if you watch his matchup here with Nakajima, you will see how much more impressive that Okada continues to get. I mean, he's not getting his hand raised very often at all, really, but he just continues to look incredibly good. And he did here against guys like Nakajima and Keno. He looked like $1 million. Inamura, of course, and really cool, that new gear of his he's had for a little while now, but I'm really impressed with it. Makes him look like $1 million, which he deserves to look like. Just a monster in the ring. Harada is Harada. I mean, Daisuke Harada is one of the best juniors in the world, bar none. Junta Miyawaki is one of the most inspired young guys I've ever seen. And Katogi is Katogi. He's been around for quite a while, and he's been a star of this company the whole time, pretty much. But they just couldn't overcome Kongo. And boy, I'm biased as hell. I am a Kongo guy. I really need to see them step it up. I mean, they're a hell of a faction, a hell of a unit. And they showed that here. They controlled this match most of the way. Now, again, that's not saying it was a squash match, not even close, but they really were in control, and you could just see it the whole match long. You knew that Kongo was just controlling this matchup. They get the big win here. Nakajima knocks Junta Miyawaki out with a soccer kick to the side of the head. Didn't even really run into it, just took a step maybe and knocked him right along the temple. Knocked him out, gets the easy pin for the win for Kongo, a much-needed win. I want to see this faction really shoot up. I really want to see them featured. I really want to see them main eventing. I really want to see Nakajima with the GHC heavyweight title. He has a climb to make because they beat him like a redheaded stepchild as of late. I don't know what's going on or why they're doing that or why they've done it. But I really hope Nakajima makes a climb back to the top and gets that title back. Especially since him and Keno did not win the tag team titles, which I wouldn't have minded seeing that. But we didn't. But here, this is a very good match for a 10-man tag team matchup, which, in my opinion, as great as all 10 of these guys are, that's just too many guys in the ring. It's too many guys in the ring. But still, very good for what it was, and definitely great to see Kongo get a big win, which, in my opinion, they desperately needed. And they got it here. Fourth match from the show from Pro Wrestling Noah this morning here, May 19th. Could have been a main event, guys. Could have been a main event. Kaito Kitamiya took on Simon Gotch in a classic professional wrestling match. Look, Simon Gotch has come into pro wrestling knowing absolutely proved that he belongs. If this guy's a journeyman. He wrestles all over the world in many different wrestling companies. And if there's one place he absolutely fits in wonderfully, it is pro wrestling Noah. I've said before, I would gladly like to see him or accept seeing him as a member of Stinger. But he absolutely doesn't have to do that. He could stand on his own. He could join Congo. Numerous places he would absolutely belong. Here, he and the former GHC heavyweight champion, the best young wrestler on the Noah roster by far, went toe-to-toe, back and forth, in an exhibition match of what professional wrestling is supposed to look like. And, I mean, from power moves to technical moves to submissions and throws and suplexes, this just was something that I love to see, and could watch a match like this, or this very match, card after card after card, because I know they wouldn't give us the same match every time, but I know they would give us a great match every time. Gotch actually seemed to control this a little bit. Gotch seemed to be on his way to victory, but we're talking about Kaito Kitamiya here. We're talking about a guy that overcomes. We're talking about a guy who can wrestle defensively like few others. And that's what he did here. Gotch got to a point to where he had him up in the Gotch pile driver, ready to end the matchup. And Kitamiya basically gets out of it, tackles Gotch to the ground, and applies his new hold, the move he's only been using a few weeks, and that is the cattle mutilation. I don't believe he's calling it that, but that's what I'm calling it, because that's what one of the best wrestlers in the world, even though I don't watch him today, Bryan Danielson, called it for many years, starting in Ring of Honor. And Kaito Kitamiya gets the win with that submission hold. And look, again, this could have easily been the main event. I have not seen the main event here, obviously, yet, because I like to respond to these matches as I watch. And I'm sure it's going to be great. But this match was perfect. Just can't get any better than this, really. And not much else to say about it. Kitamiya with a big win over Simon Gotch. But Simon Gotch continually proving that Pro Wrestling Noah is a place he belongs. Match 5, guys. I had some technical difficulties here. This will be the second time I'll be filming my thoughts on this matchup. It has me somewhat frustrated because I'm putting the show together, right, doing all my editing, and for some reason there was no volume on this part of the review. So here I am filming match 5 for the second time. Hopefully I can do it justice with the attitude this happening's pushed me into. But this was a big one. This was Stinger versus Stinger, with the addition of Kai Fujimura teaming with Chris Ridgway and Ogawa, taking on Seiki Yoshioka, Yuyu Susumu, and Hayata. Now, Hayata was pretty much, I don't want to say backed into a corner, but Susumu and Yoshioka pursued him hard, assuming he was on their side, shaking his hand, getting him to agree to this matchup. And when you see Kai Fujimura, as good as he might be, thrown into the mix here, you just assume that's probably the guy's getting pinned or submitted, right? Wrong. This match, what shocked me, not really shocked, might be a strong term. What surprised me about this matchup was how not too infuriated. You know what I mean? It wasn't nobody jumped the bell. Nobody did anything crazy until towards the end of the match. But I was surprised at how calm this kicked off. It really, for as much heat here, where the loser of this match, not this match, but this is a preview of the Junior Tag Team Championship match coming up, with Susumu and Yoshioka take on Ridgway and Ogawa. And the loser of that match is out of Stinger. Whichever two loses that match are out. With knowing that coming into this, knowing that Hayata is sort of seemingly on Susumu and Yoshioka's side, and I say assumingly because he did it, not begrudgingly, but he seemed coaxed to me. I didn't know how to take this match, but it's going to come down to what Hayata does. That's what I said when I previewed this match on the other Mountain Era podcast. That's exactly what happened here, because the match was thrown out
about 10 minutes in, when Ogawa attacked, I believe it was Susumu, might have been Yoshioka, I'm sorry, I don't remember off the top of my head which one, but he attacked one of them with the junior tag team title. Bam! Nailed him in the head with it, ref threw the match out. But it was weird because up until that point, it was pretty even keel. They were wrestling this pretty fairly, unemotionally, if you will. And I guess Ogawa just snapped, or he planned it all along as a psychological measure, which we couldn't put that past Ogawa at all. And the match was thrown out, and Susumu and Yoshioka decide to attack afterwards. We're going to hurt these guys, take them down a peg before our upcoming title match. And Hayata stepped in and stopped it, even tossing Susumu and Yoshioka out of the ring. And then he stood tall with his fellow champions, with Ogawa and Ridgeway, and Hayata with his junior championship, and they with their tag champions stood there tall in the ring posing for pictures. So obviously, well, you can never say obviously with Stinger. It appears that Hayata has sided with Ogawa and Ridgeway, which could mean a huge difference in this upcoming match, just if nothing else but in their minds, in their heads. But with Stinger, you can't put anything past anyone. It could be Hayata playing games to eventually turn on Ridgeway and Ogawa to give the win in the titles to Susumu and Yoshioka. I'm not necessarily predicting that, but look, with Stinger, you can't ever know. You don't know what any of these guys are thinking until they really show you in the end. And that's what we're going to have to wait on here. But this was a solid match up until Ogawa just decided to use the belt as a weapon. It really was a solid match and a nice preview for the upcoming junior tag team title matchup.
The sixth match in the semi-main event, excuse me while I slide my microphone over here, was Hijo del Dr. Wagner Jr., the son of Dr. Wagner Jr., part of me just wants to say that in English, versus Masa Kitamiya. Now, this is another preview match, just like Elgin versus Dupree was. This is a preview match for the upcoming title match for those GHC heavyweight tag team titles, as one half of the championship team, the son of Dr. Wagner Jr., takes on Masa Kitamiya. Now, this was better than Elgin versus Dupree. Now, those of you that know me know that I'm a fan of Elgin. I have followed Elgin for many years. I've been a fan of his since his Ring of Honor days. I was a big fan of him being the Ring of Honor champion. And I'm a defender of some of the nonsense that's said about him by people that haven't even really looked into what that garbage is about. But I said I'm not going to bemoan about that anymore, and I'm not. Now, even though I'm a fan of Kitamiya too, of course. But I just thought that Renee Dupree and Michael Elgin focused way too much on just trying to prove who the more powerful guy was in their matchup. And it's pretty much a toss-up. I mean, they're both gigantic men, muscle-bound to the max, and just going into a match and trying to say, okay, I'm stronger, no, I'm stronger, and that's the whole story of the match. It wasn't a bad match, but it led to a countout. This match here started instantly a whole lot better. Kitamiya attacked the son of Dr. Wagner Jr., immediately, went after his legs, tried to take his wheels out. To his credit, Wagner reversed that and really started working Kitamiya's legs over. This wasn't a power match. They used their power moves, which both of them possess for sure, but this was very much a solid wrestling matchup, hold for hold, move for move, guys trying to out-wrestle one another, guys trying to take out each other's limbs, their arms, their legs, trying to weaken each other, not just with body slams and suplexes and clotheslines, but with takedowns and a lot of other classic, about to knock my mic over, other classic professional wrestling moves. This was a much faster paced match than Elgin versus Dupree. It was no cruiserweight match or anything like that, nor did it what I want it to be. But both guys moved much more quickly, really tried to outdo the other one. They really tried to use head games against each other, again, instead of just using power. I don't even remember seeing, I watched this closely, I don't remember seeing Kitamiya doing his Kitamiyaing, his hulking up, if you will. I didn't see him fighting it off like that. They were more focused on their wrestling, which was tight, which was solid, which was very good. They used their power in certain situations, like I said, to try to wear limbs down. And that's where Dr. Wagner Jr.
the son of Dr. Wagner Jr., got the advantage. He really worked over Kitamiya's head and neck. And that came out to really give him the win here, although he did use a vicious double fish hook on Kitamiya towards the end, reared him back in a semi-camo clutch type of maneuver, and sunk in a double fish hook. The ref had to count it out, get him to knock that off. But then he grasped Kitamiya's head and continued to rear backwards, wrenching that neck and that head pretty badly until Kitamiya had no choice but to tap out. And he loses here, which in the preview match, that doesn't look good for Kitamiya and Elgin. But if you remember just the other week, Kitamiya made Dr. Wagner Jr. tap out with his prison leg lock. So his prison lock, it's a leg lock called a prison lock. And so they're sort of one for one, even though Kitamiya defeated Wagner Jr. in a 6-man tag, not quite as luxurious victory as beating Dr. Wagner Jr. beating Kitamiya in a singles match. Still, they're sort of 1-1 against each other going into their tag team title match. And Renee Dupree didn't beat Elgin, and Elgin didn't beat Renee Dupree. So, look, this tag team match, I don't want to preview it here. That's coming up in the next segment, but it's really going to come down to not who the most powerful team is. Both of these teams are ridiculously powerful. Both Elgin and Kitamiya and the son of Dr. Wagner Jr. and Renee Dupree are going to have to wrestle. And I mean, utilize their power, but more than that, utilize strategy, utilize professional wrestling holds and maneuvers more than just their slams and their clotheslines and their forearms and stuff like that, even though I'm a big fan of house fights. They're going to have to turn that down, and the best wrestlers will win that matchup. And I'm going into the preview, which I don't want to do. But Hijo del Dr. Wagner Jr. gets the big win over Masa Kitamiya before the upcoming tag team title match where Wagner Jr. and Renee Dupree take on Masa Kitamiya and Michael Elgin. An absolute must-see tag team title match for sure. But this was good, really good for a semi-main event, and I liked how the guys worked it. I'm a fan of Kitamiya and Elgin. I don't dislike Hijo del Dr. Wagner Jr. and Renee Dupree. I don't dislike them at all. I respect them. I think they're solid champions. But I was disappointed in Kitamiya losing, but here's hoping for me. I don't know what you think. I'm sure many of you are your typical ignorant Americans who don't like Michael Elgin. But I'm hoping for new tag champions with Kitamiya and Elgin. I really am. But I'm sure it'll be a great match no matter what. We have one more match to go. The main event. That's coming up next. The main event from Pro Wrestling Noah's show earlier this morning here on May 19th was Satoshi Kojima teaming with Marufuji to take on Goji Ozaki and Daiki Inaba. Now, this is a preview matchup. We're going to see Satoshi Kojima taking on Goji Ozaki coming up at Cyber Fight Festival for that GHC Heavyweight Championship. There's only been 3 other men who have held the Triple Crown Championship from All Japan, the IWGP Heavyweight Championship, and the GHC Heavyweight Championship. Satoshi Kojima wants to become the 4th man to do it. Can he do it? If these preview matches are any indication, it looks like he can and he might. He and his teams have been defeating Goji Ozaki and his teams, and that's what's happened here when Kojima pins Daiki Inaba after about a 15-minute match or so. Now, you guys know what a Noah freak I am, what a sycophant I am, maybe you might be able to call me, even though I hope not. My dedication, my passion for pro wrestling, Noah. But that never means that I'm not going to be critical about something I don't like. And let me tell you something I don't like, something I'm tiring of. I did tweet this out if you follow me on Twitter. Marufuji and Inaba are great. Those two, they have something special. There are just certain guys, when they get in the ring together, have magic. And these two have magic. And they're great to see, except for one, I don't want to say small thing. It's a pretty big deal. I'm getting a little tired. Now, I know some of you Puroso fans are going to try to give me a lesson that this has happened in the past, that some of the greats have done this. I know that. But I'm not a big fan of it. Now, back in the day when it was rare and only happened among the greatest of the great guys wrestling in Japan, I can get past that. but it happens everywhere now, and it loses its effect. What am I talking about? I'm talking about guys giving each other crippling moves. There was a spot where one of the last times these two wrestled in a singles match, where Marufuji gave Daiki Inaba a pile driver on the ring apron, and the match went another 10 minutes. It had little to no effect. It's ridiculous. And here, Marufuji gives Daiki Inaba a brain buster on the floor to the ring apron. Like, it's a short distance, but he dropped him on his head on the ring apron again. And then Daiki Inaba, I believe it was he gave Marufuji a DDT on the floor right after that. It might have been Marufuji giving him a DDT on the floor, which I couldn't quite make it out because I was frustrated. It was on the dark side of the ring, the right side. I'm trying to watch it. And I didn't really care at this point. Not about this match, but about these two in this segment. I mean, it's just... Look, these moves should be hospitalization moves. In the very least, they should be match-ending moves, not something you do in the middle of a match. And it really took me out of this. That doesn't mean I hated the match. Overall, the match was fine for what it was. A nice little preview match while hyping Kojima versus Ozaki. Okay, that worked. And I really do like Marufuji and Inaba against each other about 95% of the time. But every so often, these two want to do crippling moves. DDTs on the apron, pile drivers on the apron, DDTs on the floor, and keep going for another 10 minutes or so. Like, there's little to no effect on either one of them from such ridiculous moves. I'm not going to hype on it forever like this is an AEW show because it's nowhere near like that. But it does get tiresome, and I am critical of things like that, and I'm going to be critical of things like that even in a company that I pretty much love. But this was a solid main event. Like I said, nice little preview match. Kojima stands tall at the end, says he's going to win that GHC Heavyweight Championship. And him versus Goji Ozaki should be a very good match when it comes up, even though I'm not a fan of DDT at all. I don't like DDT. And I'm not excited to see Noah wrestlers face a bunch of DDT guys in this upcoming Cyber Fight Festival or whatever it's called. I'll probably grit my teeth and watch it because it's Noah, but I'm not real excited about it. But this match should be really good. Main event for the GHC Heavyweight title. And this match was what it was solid. I just am tired of Marufuji and Daiki Inaba trying to cripple each other and it having little to no effect. That's all I'm going to say about that. But overall, another great show from Pro Wrestling Noah. As always, you can count on these guys for wrestling done right. Coming up next, we're going to preview the matchup coming up on, what is the date on that? It's Saturday the 21st. It's Thursday now. I'm a little behind getting this show out because I wanted to be able to watch this show from May 19th that we've just reviewed. So I pushed the date back for this episode of the podcast because I wanted to get this review in. I wanted to review both these shows, and that's what we did. And we're going to preview the show coming up on the 21st, and it's a hell of a show. That preview is coming up next.